Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to Tell Stories for Saturday night. The title of this week's video is Reality According to the Torah. Actually, it is a pairing of two stories, both exemplifying the intriguing title, and both are adaptations of my adaptations of the renditions in A Treasury of Hasidic Tales. First story, fatted geese for Passover. In Europe, it was the custom to fatten up the geese in the months preceding Passover, since many families refrained from using any oil for cooking other than goose fat. For 6 to 8 weeks, the geese would be fed a full bucket of corn twice each day, so that the time the holiday arrived, they would be so huge they could barely waddle. Two religious giants of the early 19th century, the CHATAM SOFER and the YISMACH MOSHE, differed in their rulings as to whether the practice of force-feeding rendered the geese not kosher. The question revolves around whether or not the sharp corn grains which were forced down the throats of the birds would damage the esophagus, the food pipe, thus making the birds treif, that is, unable to live another year. And therefore, if they're treif, they're not kosher to eat. Rabbi Moshe Schreiber, who passed in 1839, was a giant of Torah known as the CHATAM SOFER, after the title of the volumes of response of questions and answers, which have been significant to a high degree in the modern development of Jewish law and thought. The CHATAM SOFER held that he ruled that the esophagus would not necessarily be damaged, and therefore the practice is permissible. Of course, the geese had to be carefully checked before being consumed to prove that they were kosher by the process described later. Rabbi Moshe Teitelbaum, known as the YISMACH Moshe after the title of his book of Torah commentary, was famed both as a scholar and a wonder worker. A disciple of the seer of Lublin, he was instrumental in the spread of Hasidus in Hungary. His descendants founded the dynasties of Satmar and Siget. It's still functioning today. The YISMACH Moshe felt that since the corn kernels were sharp, the likelihood was that the birds would be rendered treif by the force feedings. He ruled that the geese fed in this manner would not be permissible. The two corresponded back and forth, each presenting learned arguments to prove his point. Their dispute being purely for the sake of heaven, not for any personal aggrandizement. Finally, the CHATAM SOFER suggested that instead of theorizing, they should put their rulings to a practical test. Each was to take 10 geese and fatten them up. Then they would slaughter them, fill the esophagus with air, and float them in a full tub of water. If the esophagus was damaged, air bubbles would emerge into the water, thus proving that the bird was treif. If no bubbles were seen, the birds would be kosher. When the birds were duly fattened and slaughtered, an amazing thing took place. All the birds from the household of the CHATAM SOFER proved to be kosher, whereas all the birds of the YISMACH Moshe tested treif. They had both proved their rulings to be correct, even though each one's conclusion contradicted the others. And so it was seen that the legal rulings of these two great Torah giants dominated the physical reality, proving the axiom that the rulings of true Torah authorities determine the actuality of a physical situation. Story number 2, the land of the living. Rabbi Eliasif Yosef of Driven was one of the elder disciples of Rabbi Dov Ber of Lubavitch, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, son of the Alter Rebbe Rav Shneur Zalman. And after he was known as the Middle Rebbe. And after the Rebbe's passing in 1827, he became Rabbi Eliel Yosef became a disciple of his successor and son-in-law, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch. Both Rebbes used to direct students to Rabbi Eliyahu Yosef to learn Hasidic philosophy from his mouth. He was a very excellent teacher, and had a very deep understanding of Hasidic thought. He moved from Driven to become the Rav of Polotsk, and subsequently he became dangerously ill, and his doctors despaired of saving his life. Interestingly, The disease from which he suffered is the subject of a conflict of opinion in the Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law. If an animal were to contract this disease, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the great Sephardic sage and author of Shulchan Aruch, holds it to be still kosher. Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the great Ashkenazic authority, appended his glosses to Shulchan Aruch, presenting the Ashkenazic point of view. He rules that the animal to become treifa, in which case it must be discarded. Said Rabbi Eliyahu Yosef, listen to this. He says, I know what to do. I will go and settle in the Holy Land. But Rabbi Yosef Cairo, from his time onward, is the dominant ruling legal authority for that region. In Israel, the law will be settled in accordance with his view. And I won't be a treifa. I don't have to die. He set out at once for the Holy Land, where he lived on for some 20 years more, for over 20 years more. At length, he passed away on the 12th of Tavis in 1865 in Jerusalem, and among those hills he was brought to rest. There you are, folks. Another example demonstrating that the rulings of the true Torah authorities can determine the actuality of a physical situation. So may we merit a true redemption also at the level of physical reality in this, the month in which we left Enmas from Egypt, thereby endowing forever the Jewish month of Nisan with the spirit and potential of redemption. Chodesh Tov and Shavua Mutzlach, a good month and a successful week, and blessings for a kosher, happy festival of our freedom, starting 11 nights from tonight.